Alrighty, so I am going to be doing a presentation of firearms on the ballot for Washington in 2016. So the first thing I'll do is explain kind of what this measure is about by reading you a summary of what this ballot is about. This measure would authorize courts, upon petition by police or a family or a household member, to issue an extreme risk protection order to prevent an individual from accessing firearms for a specified time period if the court finds that the individual poses a significant danger of causing personal injury to himself or others with a firearm. And I said that if you voted yes to this, you were basically allowing the courts to give extreme risk protection orders to that person that was threatening to harm either himself or the community. And if you said no, that you are not allowing this extreme risk protection order to be put on an individual that was threatening. Some more summary of what this ballot was about is, or kind of the reasons that this ballot was created in the first place, was to protect people from risks such as public shootings and just kind of taking away that fear of being in an area where there tends to be a lot of public shootings, or there historically has been. Another reason was for people who have mental illness and show violent tendencies who are still able to buy firearms. This just allows people, someone would be able to report this person to the court and be able to restrict their access to own or buy a firearm for up to a year, and they would also be able to annually renew that restraining order of the firearms if they don't show to get any better within that year. Another reason this ballot was created was that screening people more carefully makes the community feel more comfortable than that someone who does not think clearly could cause trouble. So just kind of that idea that your community has more protection, like you have the ability to make your community safer by deciding who should have like restriction to access firearms so that there's hopefully less random shootings. So some arguments for and against. Arguments for this initiative was that there would be less shootings, and just due to people, kind of like being cops, like getting the people who you think could cause trouble under control by taking away their right to have a firearm, and provide the community with a better sense of security. And one of the big arguments for this initiative was to lower the rates of suicide, because you could report somebody you thought was talking, kind of like suspicious, like you thought they were going to commit suicide or something. You could report that to the courts and restrict their ability to get a firearm. Some arguments against was that it stigmatizes mental illness, and that not all people who have mental illness are violent. And people will feel less secure because less people will own guns, including themselves, so they don't have a firearm to protect their home. And what I meant by this was people who like think of if someone was wrongly accused for having violent tendencies, then they would not be able to buy a firearm to protect their home as a form of having a firearm as a form of security for their house. And I said, another argument against this was it would be too much of a hassle to get firearms, because people would start to not want to necessarily get into buying firearms because who knows who could say something against them, and it's just too much of a hassle. A bias argument for Measure one would be, so here's what someone said that was for Measure 1491. Firearms should be restricted from those who seem suspicious of causing harm to themselves or others. And I thought this was biased because why should others who have no expertise be allowed to take away someone's gun's rights? And some further explanation on that was, who should anybody, if they didn't like that person, they could just say that this person is suspicious of, that this person has suspicious activity and they should have their gun rights taken away, but maybe that person really wasn't suspicious of violent activity and then you took away their gun rights. So moving along to the biased argument against Measure 1491 I found an argument that said, couldn't a family member just take away a person's gun and keep them from buying and owning a gun, not having to involve the government? And I thought that this was a one-sided argument because they are not taking into consideration what the benefits of having extreme risk protection orders issued against the suspected individual could do. Some of these benefits would be just simply not, if it's in the government system that this person is violent and has a restraining order against buying and owning a gun, then it is just that much more under control rather than a family member taking this into their own hands to try and control. Catholic analysis about this would be, I said a Catholic would likely vote for this measure because it is in support of human life. And the 4 principles, I took this kind of part out of the guide for a Catholic voter, was the 4 principles include the dignity of a human person, the common good, subsidiarity, and solidarity. And I said ballot 1491 agrees with the common good because we are protecting the community from a repeated danger that has occurred in the United States. And by voting yes for this initiative, you are supporting human life so that less lives are being lost, whether it be to suicide or to public shootings. You are voting for extra precautions to be taken so that incidents like that don't happen as much. The next page has another quote from the guide for a Catholic voter. Every person and association has a right and a duty to participate in shaping society to promote the well-being of individuals and the common good. And I thought this part about promoting the well-being of individuals was very prevalent in the initiative 1491 because you really are thinking about others and the health of the person that you would be reporting to the government, because if someone seems like they can't handle having a firearm, there should be restraining orders for them so that accidents don't happen. I said that if there was any reason that a Catholic voter would not vote for this initiative would be because of the fact that people believed this ballot targeted people with mental illness, and the Catholic Church cares a lot about the dignity of a human being, and accusing somebody of having violence because they have mental illness goes against that a bit. But other than that, there was more good in Initiative 1491 that went along with what the church said, that I still believe that a Catholic would vote for this initiative. And that is all I have.